Well, good afternoon, brothers and sisters. It is always wonderful to be with you today. This is Readings with Regina, and I am Dr. Regina Jennings. And I want to begin by welcoming my new subscribers. I'm just so pleased that people are subscribing because I never knew how such a YouTube video series would go. And I also want to just mention to people who have made comments that I didn't know I was to hit another button to bring up your comments. Okay. So I'm learning as we go along. And so I want you to forgive me for that. And hopefully today, should any people make a comment, those of you who are here with me live, I will be able to bring it up and let other people see your comments. And I can even comment on your comment. And we're going to do something a little bit different today. I actually want to show you an image. It's an image from 1860, I think 66 or 67, just after the Civil War. And you've learned a lot about enslavement in America, and you're even going to learn more. But I want you to see a newspaper image that's published in this book that we have been reading, The Half Has Never Been Told: Slavery and the Making of American Capitalism. The picture is going to be from that book. But before I even show you the image, I just want to say that the actual passage that I'm going to share with you today is from the 1780s. Okay, there were white land speculators all over America, especially Georgia and the Mississippi area, and they were selling land. All right, and they were encouraging other Europeans, other whites, and even the whites that were here to purchase land and purchase a Negro to work the land. And they even had advertisements that said, buy this land, buy a Negro. One Negro can work this land. Then the next year, you can buy another Negro. And the next year, another Negro. I mean, these were actual advertisements in newspapers around America. So before I actually read, well, no, I think I'm going to read this first, and then I'm going to show you an image that I want you to comment on. And again, this is like the 1780s going into the 1785s and 1790s. What was clear, however, was that people around the United States were willing to pour money into slavery's frontier. They anticipated that slave made commodities would find a profitable market. So did migrant enslavers, and so they demanded more slaves. In 1786, John Lawson wrote to a Virginia planter whose Georgia land he was managing. Crops were fine, he reported. Impending war with the Indians promised more land acquisitions. I want to read that again. Impending war with the Indians promised more land acquisitions, and likely Negroes is the best trade for land that can be. Now, notice how they knew it was going to be war with the Native Americans, but they also knew that they had an advantage, and they were just waiting to kill off, to genocide all the Native Americans in that Georgia, Mississippi area so that they could take their land and then have Africans, African Americans, or as they were called, our ancestors were called, Negroes worked that land. Now, this image that I'm going to show you, I just want you to comment on it. Let me see. There it is. There's the image. And I want you to look very carefully at the image. I wish I could make it bigger. I don't think that I can. No, I don't think that I can. And I don't want to touch anything and lose you all. But do look at that image. Look at that image. Look carefully at it. It was done in the 1860s. This is not a photograph. This is an artist's rendition of this scene. So it's not a photograph. It's not real. This was created out of an artist's mind. And so I want you to comment on whatever it is that you see in that photo. Well, it's not a photograph. In that image that stirs you in any way. And if I don't really see any comments at this time, because I know many of you watch these videos later, you're not watching them while they are live. Let me just say this. I want you to, I think you can see the two enslaved people in the front. Those are two men, and they are definitely enslaved males. There's also a child to the right. See that child? And the child, male or female, has like some kind of a bucket in front of the child. And in the back, there are two white men in hats. So I want you to just take a moment to look at this picture. I didn't want to comment before I heard from any of you, but maybe I will comment because I'm not hearing or seeing any comments at this time. Notice how the enslaved men, and they're working the cotton gin, by the way. The cotton gin was an invention that helped the procurement and the treatment of cotton go quickly. Okay, so this was an innovation at the time that the enslaved people were working. But notice the white men in the back. How do they look different from the enslaved people? Notice too, to your far right, there is a woman and she has something on her head. So I wanted you to just see an image from that time period before I proceeded onward. Okay. So just keep that image in mind. I might bring it up again. All right. Let me see. What do I want to do now? Let me move this. Okay, cool. All right. So I will bring that image back up a little later in the program because I really do want to hear your reflections of seeing that. Now we got to read Brother Fred. My book is so old. I really need to get this bound better, but I don't want to part with it for sentimental reasons. But Brother Fred is very important to understanding the enslavement of African people in this country because, as I've said many times, he was an enslaved male himself. So he's reporting to us what happened to him, what happened to others, what happened to family members. I'm on chapter 5. Okay, for those of you who have actually gotten the book and are following me. Fred Douglass. As to my own treatment while I lived on Colonel Lloyd's plantation, it was very similar to that of the other slave children. I was not old enough to work in the field, and there being little else than field work to do, I had a great deal of leisure time. The most I had to do was to drive up the cows at evening, keep the fowls out of the garden, keep the front yard clean, and run of errands for my old master's daughter. Mrs. Lucretia Auld. The most of my leisure time I spent in helping Master Daniel Lloyd in finding his birds after he had shot them. My connection with Master Daniel was of some advantage to me. He became quite attached to me and was a sort of protector of me. He would not allow the older boys to impose upon me and would divide his cakes with me. I was seldom whipped by my old master and suffered little from anything else than hunger and cold. I suffered much from hunger, but much more from cold. In hottest summer and coldest winter, I was kept almost naked. No shoes, no stockings, no jacket, no trousers, nothing on but a coarse towel linen shirt, reaching only to my knees. I had no bed. I must have perished with cold, but the coldest nights, I used to steal a bag which was used for carrying corn to the mill. I would crawl into this bag and there sleep on the cold, damp clay floor with my head in and feet out. My feet have been so cracked with the frost that the pen with which I am writing might be laid in the gashes. We were not regularly allowanced. Our food was coarse cornmeal, boiled. This was called mush. It was put into a large wooden tray or trowel. Do y'all know a trowel is what horses, cows eat out of? Slave children's food was put in a trowel. The children were then called like so many pigs, and like so many pigs, they would come and devour the mush, some with oyster shells, others with pieces of shingle, some with naked hands, and none with spoons. He that ate fastest got most. He that was strongest secured the best place, and few left the trial satisfied. I was probably between 7 and 8 years old when I left Colonel Lloyd's plantation. I left it with joy. I shall never forget the ecstasy with which I received the intelligence that my old master, Anthony, had determined to let me go to Baltimore to live with Mr. Hugh Auld, brother to my old master's son in law, Captain Thomas Auld. Notice how they kept slaves within the family. Within a family, they would pass the slaves around. I received this information about 3 days before my departure. They were three of the happiest days I ever enjoyed. I spent the most part of all these 3 days in the creek, washing off the plantation scurf and preparing myself for my departure. The pride of appearance which this would indicate was not my own. I spent the time in washing, not so much because I wished to, but because Mrs. Lucretia Auld had told me I must get all the dead skin off my feet and knees before I could go to Baltimore. For the people in Baltimore were very cleanly and would laugh at me if I looked dirty. Besides, she was going to give me a pair of trousers, which I should not put on unless I got all the dirt off me. The thought of owning a pair of trousers was great indeed. It was almost a sufficient motive, not only to make me take off what would be called by pig drovers the mange, but the skin itself. I went at it in good earnest, working for the first time with the hope of reward. Okay, I'm going to stop there with Brother Fred. Now I'm going to go to, let me look over here for a second. Where's that? I'm going to go to Blake. This book is just so important. As I've mentioned before, Blake was the first Black nationalist freedom fighter in fiction during the slavery era. So this book by Martin Delaney is a very important book for you to know, and I'm hoping some of you will read it. It was actually written in the Afro-American magazine in the 1800s, and it was like a serial, episodic. So I've skipped some just because it's I love Martin Delaney, but his writing was just not as smooth as, say, Frederick Douglass's was. And one of the things that he attempted to do was to capture the lingo, the way the enslaved people talked at that time. And sometimes I honestly just can't understand all of the words, but I'm doing my best. And as I read this, you'll see why that it is really significant to read this work of fiction, because Delaney wrote it as a response, actually, to Uncle Tom's Cabin, because he didn't particularly like the image of the Uncle Tom character. And you know that term, Uncle Tom, is still with us today. So Delaney, he didn't really dislike Harriet Beecher Stowe, but he certainly did not want that image of the Black male to be the only image in fiction of a Black male. So he wrote about Blake, and Blake's name is also Henry. Now, as I mentioned to you last time we were together on Tuesday, Henry's wife has been sold away to Cuba. There was slavery in Cuba. The Southerners in America loved it. So they imported it to Cuba. Anyway, Henry's wife, Maggie, now he's away. He's dealing with some horses at the races for Colonel Franks. So he's not there to see his wife being sold. And I'm going to start reading where he returns. Now, the person that he's going to be talking to, her name is Mammy Judy. Her husband is Daddy Joe. Now, Mammy Judy is Henry's wife's mother. Okay. Henry has just gotten off of the ship, the Sultana, and he's coming home. "How'd you do, Mammy? How's Mag and the boy?" inquired he, grasping the old woman by the hand. She burst into a flood of tears, throwing herself upon him. "What's the matter?" exclaimed Henry. "Is Maggie dead?" "No, child," with increased sobs she replied. "Much better she were. My God, has she disgraced herself?" "No, child. Maybe better she done so than she been here now and not sold. Marse Stephen sell her. I don't reckon that's the reason." "What? Do you tell me, Mammy? She had better disgraced herself than been sold by the Oh Henry, so yeah, ain't gonna swear. Hope you ain't gonna swear. Don't lose your religion. Don't lose your religion. Don't do so. Put your trust in the Lord. He is sufficient for all." This is Henry now. "Don't tell me about religion. What's religion to me? My wife is sold away from me by a man who is one of the leading members of the very church to which both she and I belong. Put my trust in the Lord. I have done so all my life, nearly. And of what use is it to me? My wife is sold from me, just the same as if I didn't. Come on, Henry. Ye mustn't talk so. We is poor, weak, and blind creatures, and can see the way of the Lord. He moved in mysterious way his wonders to perform. So he may. And what is all that to me? I don't gain anything by it. And stop, Henry, stop. Ain't the Lord bless you so? Ain't he take ye foot out the mire of clay and give ye hope that other side this veil of tears? I'm tired looking the other side. I want to hope this side of the veil of tears. I want something on this earth as well as a promise of things in another world. I and my wife have been both robbed of our liberty, and you want me to be satisfied with a hope of heaven? I won't do any such thing. I have waited long enough on heavenly promises. I'll wait no longer. Henry, what the matter with ye? I never hear you talk so. For ye sin in the sight of God. Ye going clean back, I reckon. The good book tell us 1,000 years with man ain't but a day with the Lord. Boy, ye got to wait on the Lord. Wait on the appointed time. Well, mammy, it is useless for me to stand here and have the same gospel preached into my ears by you that I have all my lifetime heard from the enslavers. My mind is made up. My course is laid out. And if life lasts, I'll carry it out. I'll go out to the place today and let them know that I have returned. Sure, boy, what ye gonna do? Burn the house down? Better put ye trust in the Lord, concluded the old woman. You have too much religion, mammy, for me to tell you what I intend doing, said Henry in conclusion. After taking up his little son and pressing kisses on his cheeks for himself and tears for his mother, the intelligent slave, Delaney wrote, the intelligent slave left the abode of the careworn old woman for that of his master at the cotton place. Now listen to this description. Henry was a black, a pure Negro, handsome, manly, and intelligent, in size comparing well with his master, but neither so fleshy nor heavy built in person. A man of good literary attainments, unknown to Colonel Franks, though he was aware he could read and write, having been educated in the West Indies and decoyed away when young. His affection for wife and child was not excelled by Colonel Franks's for his wife and child. He was bold, determined, and courageous, but always mild, gentle, and courteous. Though impulsive, when an occasion demanded his opposition, going immediately to the place he presented himself before his master. Much conversation ensued concerning the business which had been entrusted to his charge, all of which was satisfactorily transacted, and full explanations concerning the horses, but not a word was uttered concerning the fate of Maggie, the colonel barely remarking, "Your mistress is unwell." After conversing till a late hour, Henry was assigned a bed in the great house, but sleep was far from his eyes. He turned and changed upon his bed with restlessness and anxiety, impatiently awaiting a return of the morning. Early on Tuesday morning, in obedience to his master's orders, Henry was on his way to the city to get the house in readiness for the reception of his mistress, Mrs. Franks. She had improved in her sickness. Mammy Judy had not yet risen when he knocked at the door. "Hi, Henry. You here already? How come you get up so soon? After some mischief, I reckon." "Don't reckon ye after any good," saluted Mammy Judy. "No, Mammy," replied he, "no mischief, but like a good slave, such as you wish me to be, I come to obey my master's will, just what you like to see." "Sure, boy." None your nonsense. How come I want ye be obey Master Stephen? Get that nonsense in ye head last night long, so I reckon. What that ye gonna do now? I have come to dust and air the mansion for their reception. They have sold my wife away from me, and who else would do her work? This reply excited the apprehension of Mammy Judy. What ye gonna do, Henry? Ye oughta, you up to no good. Ye ain't going to attack Master Stephen, is ye? What do you mean, Mammy? Strike him? Yes. Reckon ye ain't gonna hit him. Curse? Henry, remember what I said. For the Lord's sake, you ain't gonna take no whipping, interrupted the old woman. I make no profession, Mammy. I once did before in religion, but now I have no confidence in it. My faith has been wrecked on the stony hearts of such pretended Christians as Stephen Franks, while passing through the stormy sea of trouble and oppression. Hey, boy, hey, you getting too high? You getting too high? You call Master Stephen? Yes, and I'll never call him Master again, except when compelled to do so. So I just want to say right now, what Delaney is showing us is how, after generations of enslavement, many American slaves, enslaved people, were very Christianized, and they believed that their bondage was a part of God's plan. So they knew that they were inferior to white people. They didn't see the hypocrisy of white Christians owning slaves, selling slaves. So Delaney presented this conversation between Mammy Judy and Henry because he wanted to show, in fact, the Christianization of Black people and how Christianity was not helping them to gain their freedom. Now, of course, Nat Turner would have had a different point of view because he was a Christian minister. But this is not about Nat Turner. This is about Henry facing his master who sold his wife while he was away. Okay. Let's see where. Okay. Okay. Henry brings out his Master Stevens comes, and Henry brings out the horses because they normally go riding together. Henry with his wife Maggie, who was sold, and Colonel Franks with his wife Mrs. Franks. All right. Come, Henry, my man. This is Colonel Franks. Come, Henry, my man. Get out the riding horses, ordered Colonel Franks. Yes, sir. A horse for the colonel and lady. Each was soon in readiness at the door, but none for himself. It always having been the custom in their morning rides for the maid and manservant, that is Henry and his wife, to accompany the master and the mistress. Ready, did you say? Inquired Franks, on seeing but two horses standing at the stile. Yes, sir. Where's the other horse? What for, sir? What for? Yourself, to be sure. Colonel Franks, said Henry, looking him sternly in the face. When I last rode that horse in company with you and your lady, my wife was at my side, and I will not now go without her. Pardon me, my life for it. I won't go. The colonel, not another word, you black imp, exclaimed Franks with an uplifted staff in a rage, or I'll strike you down in an instant. Strike away if you will, sir. I don't care. I won't go without my wife. You impudent scoundrel, I'll soon put an end to your conduct. I'll put you on the auction block and sell you to the Negro traders just as soon as you please, sir. The sooner the better. as I don't want to live with you any longer. Hold your tongue, sir, or I'll cut it out of your head. You ungrateful black dog. Really, things have come to a pretty pass when I must take impudence off my own Negro. By gracious God, forgive me for the expression. I'll sell every Negro I have first. I'll dispose of him to the hardest Negro trader I can find, said Franks in a rage. All right. Now, let me just say this. Henry is the first Black nationalist freedom fighter in fiction written by a Black man in the 1860s. He is the first, and that is very important because there will be other books that I share with you, where you will see how the enslaved people devolved into that interior or inferior status that was legal as well as cultural. That is very important for you to know. And I will say this. Thank you, Rainwater. I appreciate you very, very much. Love Rainwater. I really do, in real life and in your name. But check this out, people. You got to understand that our ancestors, their Negro personalities were created out of enslavement. When you look at even people today, and I don't like to make too many comparisons between that time period and today, but I must. Why? Because African people and Native American people, they believe that the land has memory, and they believe, and I'm kind of with them on this, energy transfers from one generation to another. So the way that Colonel Franks talks with Henry and the way Henry responds in another venue, like Fred Douglass has shared with us, the enslaver could have pulled out his gun and blew Henry's head off. And Henry knew that. But this Black nationalist freedom fighter was going to take a stand against the hypocrisy and the lies that his master had presented him with. This master, this white enslaver, sold this man's wife. And check this out. Henry and his wife, Maggie, used to go riding with the colonel and his wife. They did this on the regular. But while Henry was away, the master was like, look, I want the money. I'm selling this broad. And that's what he did. So this is why I say that Blake, or the Huts of America, gives you the first Black nationalist freedom fighter in literature, written by a Black man, Martin Delaney, who was remarkable in his own right during the enslavement period. So, brothers and sisters, it has been, as always, lovely to be with you. I encourage you to use these series, use these episodes, start a Saturday school with your children, start informing your friends when they come to visit. All right? Don't just look at television programs. First of all, as I've said before, they really weren't made to, uplift your intellect. What I am providing for you is an education that students literally have paid thousands of dollars to study with me and other professors. I'm giving this to you for free because I love my people dearly. And I absolutely want to be an influence on not just this generation, but the next. So, brothers and sisters, I'm going to sign off for now. But I will look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. And remember, as I will always say at the end of these programs, you are dearly loved and you are dearly prayed for. Spread Black unity. Bye now.